Hi folks, I hope all of you are still doing very well. In this lecture, we're gonna pick up where we left off. We're still gonna be talking about transitions as a focal point, if you will, in essay coherence. This time, however, I'm gonna talk to you about how to make transitions among or between, if you will, the paragraphs in a single essay. Just as a reminder, last time I introduced you to three categories of transitions. Transitions that unite ideas, transitions that divide ideas, or transitions that move the reader toward some sort of conclusion or resolution. Now, out of those three methods for making transitions, out of those three kinds of transitions, I think there are really four methods that one could employ to make transitions from one paragraph to the next. One method is what I'll call the front load method, the first sentence method, the last sentence method, and the whole paragraph method. Now, if you're not familiar with what those terms mean, don't worry, I'm going to fill in those blanks momentarily. Before I do go to the next slide, though, I want to point out that for this lecture, I need you to use a bit of imagination, in the sense that when you look at the forthcoming slides, I need you to kind of pretend, if you will, that each bullet point on those slides is at least a single paragraph within an essay. Unfortunately, it is just way too hard to, replicate multiple paragraphs within a single PowerPoint slide. If I were to try to do so, as I'm sure you know, the font would wind up being ridiculously small and hard to read. So anyway, on the front load method, I want you to pretend again that each of these is at least a paragraph within an essay. Now, at the end of an early paragraph, it could be the introduction and thesis paragraph near the end of that paragraph, but it doesn't necessarily need to be that paragraph or the very end of that paragraph. In fact, as I'm sure you know, the end of an intro and thesis paragraph is usually going to be where you would find the thesis and not a transition. So, but at the end of an early paragraph within an essay, you could have a sentence like the one that we have here. We are going to discuss 4 novels, and then you would list the novels that would be discussed: Sanctuary, The Sound and the Fury, On the Road, and The Old Man and the Sea. And then as you move through the body of the paper, then you would discuss each of those novels in the order that you listed them in that sentence. Now, it might seem like a small detail, but if you were to use this kind of transition method between your paragraphs or from one to the next, I think you'll find, as you become more experienced, that it is very important to follow through with that plan by discussing the text in the order that you list them in that sentence. It may be a small detail, but it will again help your reader to quickly and easily understand the plan that you're developing for that paper. Okay, the first sentence method, again, I need you to pretend that each of these bullet points is a paragraph. So, the first paragraph, as I want you to imagine, is a paragraph on the novel Sanctuary. At the end of that, after that first paragraph, I should say, at the start of the next paragraph, notice the sentence that we have. Unlike the straightforward writing that we see from Faulkner in Sanctuary, in The Sound and the Fury, his writing is much harder to understand. Then the rest of that paragraph, as I point out there, would go on to describe or support why the writing style in the Sound and the Fury is comparatively harder to understand than it is in Sanctuary. Now, I want you to look at that sample first sentence of, transition that I provided for you here at the start of our imaginary second paragraph. And as you look at that sentence, can you see the word that is really bringing about or affecting that transition? I'll give you a moment. Jeopardy theme music, please. Wait, I don't have the rights to that. I can't afford that. Never mind. Jeopardy theme music aside, the word that is really making the transition here is, I think you would agree, unlike. It's showing how those two novels, even though they're written by the same author, how they differ from one another. In a second sentence transition, we would have a paragraph, for instance, that is about the presence of nature in The Sound and the Fury. That's the bulk of our first paragraph. But then look at the last sentence of that paragraph that I typed up for you. Nature, however, is not an important part of On the Road. Now notice that in the next paragraph and at the start of the next paragraph, you as the writer would then go on to vocalize why nature is not a big factor in that novel On the Road. So you're starting your discussion of On the Road in the second paragraph, but the movement to that second novel, On the Road, that occurs in the second of these two paragraphs is really brought about by that last sentence at the end of the first paragraph. And again, as you look at that last sentence, it's really one word that brings about that transition. And I won't go through the whole Jeopardy spiel again, but in this case, I think we would again agree that the word that brings about the transition is however. However is again differentiating or dividing the two novels, showing how they differ from one another. Okay? And then the last method that I'll go over with you is what we would call the whole paragraph method. Now, notice that I've given you a sequence of 4 potential or hypothetical paragraphs. Paragraph A, the first one, provides observations on Sanctuary. Paragraph B, the second provides observations on the sun and the fury. The third paragraph summarizes A and B, the first two, and then suggests how On the Road is similar to those texts. The fourth paragraph then describes the novel On the Road. Now, out of these three hypothetical paragraphs, I think it's easy enough to see that the transitional paragraph is the third paragraph because you're taking in, summarizing information from the first two paragraphs and then projecting forward to the reader and to your audience what you're going to say after that point. In a transitional paragraph is usually going to do both of those things. You're going to kind of quickly summarize what you've said that really needs to be highlighted up to that point, and then you're gonna project forward. Excuse me, I got a little bit of a frog in my throat to what you're going to say after that point in the paragraph, and then after the third paragraph, of course, you execute or fulfill what you said at the end of the transition that would be coming up in the remainder of the essay. Now, whole paragraph method transitions can be a very effective and helpful method to move through your essay, but I want to caution you that typically you're not going to use a whole paragraph transition in a shorter essay. So anything up to 5 pages, I would say you probably don't need to use a whole paragraph transition, because in a shorter paper like that, space is very much more at a premium. You know, you want to be a bit more judicious with your words. However, anything beyond 5 pages, I think you can consider using a whole paragraph transition. That doesn't mean that you have to or should, but at that point, I think it becomes a possibility that you can consider. Okay? So, just a few things to wrap up then. Oh my gosh. Hang on, people. Sorry about that. We're back. I'm sorry. My computer, darn you, Windows 8. Why must you make a fool of me? Had a little bit of a hiccup there, but we're back. So, closing recommendations, as always, contact me if you have questions or concerns. The other thing that I want to encourage you to do is you incorporate these techniques into your writing is to vary your methods. Again, don't always use the first sentence method. Don't always use the last sentence method. Vary it up a little bit, okay? Variety, as they say, is the spice of life. So try to use multiple transition methods within your paper. I think you'll get a lot more out of them if you do. I also recommend that you don't overdo your transitions. And to show what I mean by that, if you'll forgive me, I want to see if I can back up the slides a little bit without breaking anything. Oh, here we go, good. Sorry about that. Yeah, let me back up um, to a couple of our earlier examples. So, if you use a particularly if you use a last sentence transition where you've clearly established what you're going to be covering in the following paragraph, like I've done here. At the start of that next paragraph, it's not really necessary to use another transitional statement. If you use the last sentence transition, then at the start of that next paragraph, then go ahead and, make your case about what you're going to say about your next subtopic. Don't think that you need to make another transitional statement. Rely on the one that you've already used and move on. Okay, and that's all I had to say about that point. Let me run to the last slide again real quick. You already saw that, so let me go and back out of here. But as I said a moment ago, and before my voice completely dies out on me, I just want to quickly reiterate, if you have any questions or concerns, about this subtopic, don't hesitate to contact me. I'm always here to help you folks if you need it. And have a nice day. Bye.